It's a new patch, which of course means new ways to gear, and it's also our last minor patch before a new season, and you probably know what that means. Blizzard disengaging any and all limiters. It's pretty crazy. Starting this week, you can get any character ready to hit next season at blazing speed. Hell, you can even pick up a buff that will last you until the end of the expansion, so there's definitely something to go and do. Now, it's all part of Blizzard overhauling the gear system to be a lot more dynamic and have way more moving parts. But most of all, what that means is it's all extremely solo and world content friendly, even, if you really push it, going as high as myth gear. And the real shocker is Blizzard somehow avoiding walking into the same rake that they've stepped on every season for years now. So today I'll tell you everything you need to know to do everything to get myth geared even as a solo player, but first let me tell you about everything new. 1207 brings a bunch of new content. There's the new one-boss raid Sporefall, and of course the off-world showdowns. Those naturally bring lots of new gear. Now, Rotmire, the actual boss inside Sporefall, drops new spore-fused gear. This stuff's really good, and basically spore-fused is a fancy way of saying it's really strong, and that's because each piece is 9 levels above the maximum for that quality. But to make it easy, here's an example. On Heroic, he drops gear that's item level 285. On Mythic, that goes all the way up to a fairly wild 298. So, pretty damn good, and instant new best-in-slot gear for just about everyone to aim for. Though you are limited in slots here. There are 2 pieces for each armor type, there's a healer necklace, a ring for nature damage dealers, and a generic trinket. So if you want better gear, then clearing Rotmire for a few weeks is a really good start. Now these are also a perfect use of your nebulous void cores, but of course only if you've already got your BIS trinkets at Myth. Okay, our next big thing is off-world showdowns. So on normal mode, in terms of gearing, they're good, they're useful, but they're not much to write home about because, well, it's not myth gear. Anyway, champion crests and farmable warbound champion gear are what you're going to get here, but only at rank 1 out of 6. But still, it's champion gear all the same, so pretty handy. Now in Heroic World tier, it gets a lot better. You'll have a much needed shot of weekly myth and hero crests, weekly warbound hero gear, and to fill out the rest of your slots, farmable champion gear that drops at up to 4 out of 6 for its upgrades. And eventually, you'll get 1 piece of free myth gear. I say eventually because it is locked behind a 4-week-long quest, and it only comes in a few flavors. Basically, the off-pieces. Now, showdowns mostly work with the existing field accolade system. I know that might sound all a little bit confusing, but field accolades were currency added in 1205, and now in 1207, you'll basically get a shitload more of them, and they are way more useful. So, both difficulties of off-world showdowns drop plenty of accolades, really for doing just about everything, but Heroic really gives you a lot, and the real good news here is that field accolade rewards are vastly improved this patch. Instead of just blind boxes for 500, 1207 adds hero gear in specific slots for 750 field accolades each. That's not cheap, but it is heroic gear for any slot you want. And if you fancy grinding out as many as, 9,500 field accolades, you could get a character fully heroic geared that way. Well, actually, you can gamble a little bit to speed it up, because it actually works out cheaper to buy a blind box while you still need 9 or more slots. That's how the maths works out, and it means that ideally you could be spending as little as 8,500 for the full set. So basically, buy 4 slots with the blind boxes and then buy specific slots for the rest. If you do that, you've got a better than 70% chance to save accolades along the way. Realistically though, you'll only use this to fill out the last stubborn pieces that you haven't been able to get elsewhere. And then, with any leftover accolades, well, the good news is you can actually kickstart gearing over in your alts. And that's because Blizzard have added in specific slot boxes for Warbound Champion gear that only cost 100 each. And that means that for about 1,200 accolades, you can get one of your characters a full slot of starting gear. So as far as currency goes, field accolades are a pretty good thing to focus on this patch. And that actually brings me to our last major addition, which is ritual sites. Okay, they're not new, they were added in the previous patch, but now they've got a tier 6 option, which means 2 things. The first thing, is way more field accolades. Basically, to activate tier 6, you need to run these with 6 challenges activated, which can make it a little bit trickier, but you'll get up to 150 or so accolades for a single run, which isn't bad, but what's even better is that these tier 6 sites now drop myth crests, and that means that we have solo farmable myth crests in World of Warcraft for the first time. And when I say farmable, I mean you can just keep on doing these and get as many myth crests as you want. And when we combine these with the existing major sources like Heroic World tier weekly quests and the tier 11 delve boxes, then this is a really good way to just top up how many you've got. I think a really good example of using these is just grinding loads of them until you can craft a piece of myth crafted gear. That stuff is really good, and by now you'll almost certainly have the crafting sparks needed for it. And if you were to go all out on this, you'd be able to get 7 or 8 pieces of mythic crafted gear, all without touching a mythic raid or high mythic plus. Now, speaking of Mythic Plus, you might be wondering if they get anything. And yeah, they do get something, but it's got a bit of a twist. So gear-wise, the Void Cores were fairly huge for Mythic Plus players, and crests were uncapped just before the patch. That means there's not much for Mythic Plusers to actually worry about, but that didn't stop Blizzard giving them a little bit of a power boost. Okay, let's talk about the power boost, but when it comes to our mid-season power boosts, Blizzard have been known for stepping on rakes and kind of giving themselves some bother. This time, they actually avoided a fairly big one. So, most minor patches in recent history have had some form of new borrowed power. This patch did as well, but not like, say, Cersei Circlet or the Reshi Wraps from past patches. You see, those items are super powerful, but they lock off a gear slot, which inevitably messes up your gearing in the next patch, which is really annoying, and it usually causes, well, a bunch of loot pool issues. It's not fun. This time it's a bit different, and it's all wrapped up in this object called the Omnium Folio, which is this thing. Over the next 5 weeks, you'll be harnessing every power of magic at once, and, elf stuff, to basically buff us for the rest of this expansion. Now, the first week is a simple unlock breadcrumb, and it gives us the core rune. It's only got 2 options to start off with, and you can swap between them freely, so just go see whatever your class Discord is saying and go run with that option. Every week after that, we'll give you a new objective to knock out, though. These are from ritual sites to beating a new showdown world boss, and over time, we're going to unlock all the different upgrades and lots more choices. Now, it doesn't seem to be a gigantic buff, but it is essentially free damage, healing, and stats, which we do like to have. And it lasts for the rest of the expansion, meaning it's definitely worth your time, but I wouldn't be surprised if, say, in patch 12.1 or 12.15, if Blizzard adds some sort of catch-up to it. And if you're worried about alts, don't be, because they've already got the alt friendliness sorted out with this feature. So, what I've covered here is everything new for gearing in this patch, and that means that gearing is now in its final form for Season 1, so, with that done, let's take a step back and let's see what getting geared up actually looks like, and what it looks like if you want to do it quick. Okay, with an expansion and 2 patches worth of stuff, I can absolutely understand people feeling overwhelmed by all of this stuff. It's weird because the gearing is easier than ever, but it has gotten pretty complicated, so I'm going to take you through it step by step. Step 0 is for your fresh 90s, just getting them off the ground. You'll probably have tons of Warbound gear from the many sources of that stuff. If not, your main can spend some field accolades on the Warbound Champion boxes. If you're all dry in those, or you're starting from scratch, then simply hit up the auction house and you'll be able to pick up some really cheap basic starter gear just to replace some of your bad leveling slots. Then, your next best bet, thankfully, is to do new content. It's to go and do the off-world showdowns. Farming accolades and crests while everything drops champion gear for you will get your character to a strong baseline in no time, and you'll actually be doing it in new content, so it should feel fairly fun. You'll want to aim for at least a weapon and, of course, your tier set, which thankfully you can make just about effortlessly with the Catalyst, because the Catalyst will have accrued loads of charges by now. And that does mean if you want to just check out a new class and immediately get tier, yeah, it's pretty good, it's pretty fun. Now, the next thing involves all that Void Core stuff. Now, if you've not unlocked all of these Void Core features, then just make sure you go to Decimus, who's located here, and pick up his purple quests. Simply go back to him whenever you finish one of the unlocks, which will happen naturally as you progress. And for now, that's all you need to know. I'll cover what you do with all of this Decimus stuff later in this video. Okay, we've done Step 0. Step 1 then, get hero gear. Now, this is essentially Blizzard's buffet philosophy on display, by which I mean there's loads of shit and you just do whatever the hell you want. Now, you can work towards hero gear in a ton of different ways. The new way of doing that is the Heroic Showdown Weekly and just farming out field accolades for boxes. But of course, the old ways do work just fine, especially this late into the season. Remember that after Renown 9 with Delves, you actually get hero gear directly from bountiful Tier 11 Delves, which are a cakewalk now that we've just about all got a pretty damn leveled up Bellular as our Delve companion. But that's just one way the Delves give you gear, so sometimes it's just sitting there in the box. But other times, you trade currency to this guy, Zahran, who appears at the end of a delve. Now, there's also still the Trove Hunter's bounty stuff each week as well. You unlock that with the Beacon of Light, which you'll get from doing Astalor's Nightmare Prey weekly. And the most efficient way to gear up is to basically just use all of these weekly and daily sources. And when you've got all those ticked off, you can then hit up your Heroic World tier or Ritual sites to go and farm out loads of accolades, which will help you fill out the rest. Now, of course, you can still do Mythic plus 10s or even some of the launch raids, but the new thing is, of course, Sporefall. That's our new raid, it's got the best gear in the game, and basically just do it at the highest difficulty you can manage. What is new, though, is 15-player Mythic Flex. So with that existing, maybe this will turn out to be fairly puggable, but I wouldn't expect pugging this in Mythic for at least a few weeks. Okay, we've done step 0, we've done step 1, now it is step 2, and that is crafting your myth gear. So once you've got hero gear in most slots, you can then go and use all of the sparks you'll have picked up to get crafting. Now for that, look, if you're going to be crafting, you may as well get myth crests, now that those are, of course, farmable. Now, first, you'll already have a handful of these from doing the Heroic World Tier Weekly and doing your Tier 11 Delves. Then, of course, there's Ritual sites on Tier 6. They're not exactly easy, but they are more than doable solo with the sorts of gear you'll have by this stage in the guide, and if you're doing it in a group, well, you can kind of trivialize it. Now, at 10 hero crests and 5 myth crests per run, it does take a little bit, but ultimately, overall, it doesn't take too long to farm out the 80 crests needed to craft an item with myth crests. The only thing putting a cap on how much myth gear you can craft is, of course, the number of sparks, which is just, I believe, 7 or 8 this far in the season. Now, when you're crafting these, you do want to target your weapons first, and with only 13 gear slots, if you really wanted to go mad and craft everything you could, well, you could basically, by this stage of the guide, have item level 285 gear in every slot except for tier and trinkets, all from crafting alone, just fairly wild. Though I should mention that because you'll be replacing all of this gear eventually, do feel free to just move on to the next step anytime, either for just a change of pace or to save yourself on myth crests, or, save yourself having to farm them all. Step 3 is targeting best-in-slot trinkets and myth gear. Now, Decimus's Nebulous Void Cores are going to come in clutch here. Now, they were added in 1205, and what they let you do is bonus roll from the dungeon or raid boss that you specifically want the loot from. And at this point, you'll be able to pick up 18 Nebulous Void Cores, which is absolutely wild. And that's actually enough to fill every single slot in your character, if, of course, luck is on your side. And the way this works is that on Mythic plus 10 or above, they will drop full myth gear. Now, Decimus gives you 2 cores a week, and you can get a third from your Great Vault. The way to do that's fairly simple. You just select the backup currency and then trade it in at this vendor. You'll be able to get best-in-slot trinkets this way, and then you'll be able to slowly replace your crafted gear with proper myth gear. Now, this is a pretty min-maxing step for most people, so if you're trying to avoid M+ or raid, you can pretty much skip this one. But once you are out of Nebulous Void Cores, then, well, there's one more thing to do, and that is step 4, upgrading all of your gear. Now, after all the ritual sites you've been running, you should have stacks of another type of Void Core called Ascendant Void Cores. Now, Ascendant Void Cores will add a chunk of extra item level to your weapon and trinkets. They'll come in very handy, and by this stage in the guide, well, you should be absolutely drowning in crests. And, well, with every slot more or less filled, all you've got to do is incremental upgrades. Spend them however you want. Naturally, do focus on the stronger slots, though technically, there is one last step. That's step 5. Wait. Yeah, just wait in the vault, raid lockouts, and more Nebulous Void Cores. you could do that to maybe further optimize how you use your crests or something. I wouldn't really recommend it. I'll just take my power now, please. But now that I've said that, basically, do whatever the hell you want in the meantime. We've got uncapped crests, farmable solo mythic crests, and a lot of other things going on, which does mean the game's gearing system is just totally blown open, and you'll be able to get insanely powerful characters. All you'll need to do, I guess, is just wait on getting more myth gear from Void Cores. Though the real trick is that all these steps aren't actually that linear. 2 through 5 are more like a weekly priority list, so you'll be doing those all of the time. And that's because each activity in the game basically rewards a bit of everything. And now that you understand all that context, here's a flowchart that may just be way easier to remember and can act as a quick reference guide. So, chase best in slot gear and myth gear in Mythic Plus and Raid with Nebulous Void Cores. Upgrade those using Ascendant Void Cores and Myth Crests. Hit up Rotmire for Spore-fused gear, and if you need more cores and crests for your upgrades, then you can farm Tier 6 ritual sites. If you find yourself needing more hero gear, then bang out all the Delve and Heroic Showdown weeklies and farm up some accolades for boxes. And that's pretty much it. There's loads of moving parts, technically, but it all boils down to a nice simple gearing loop, and likely one we'll see repeated in patch 12.1 because, well, I guess it does appear to be working. And with a patch 12.1 build sitting on the PTR servers already, but not having went live, I don't think it'll be that long until we find out what the future holds for WoW. But if you want to learn things about this current patch that were not covered in this video, well, the good news is Blizzard have dodged a bunch of other bullets that they usually just walk headlong into, and you can find out about that in this video next.